Hello everyone. Today I will be showing a simple Chandbali kind of a earring. It's a style which I think has gained popularity over the years, and I think somebody had requested this on my YouTube channel. So I think I'll probably start off with showing a really simple design. And what I've done here is. I think in the previous videos of my Jhumkas as well, I had already mentioned that working in parts makes sense. So essentially, you will want to know that a bali would have ideally a stud and then the crescent or a shape which has something like that approximately. So I mean, this is just an idea that I'm giving you. So it's always better that you start working on the stud part. Let that dry for about either the stud part or the bali part. So if you're making the bali part, you may want to put in the pins and keep it ready for at least let it dry for a couple of hours, I would say, so that it's easier to handle this part. And then once this is dried, at least bone dry or at least leather hard to bone dry state, start working on the stud. So what you can do is I'll just show you a simple way of making a stud. So I'll just use this, and you can measure it in any one you want. I'll apply a little bit of oil in the fifth one, put in a ball of clay, cut off the excess, take it out. You have a cute little round stud. Just take off the excess from the sides, rather just shapen it really well. Once you're convinced with the shape, you can make any design you wish to make. So I would make use of this. Just put a little hole there. Would use a knife. The design, again, the design aspect is something that's totally left to you. So once this is done, I'll make two little U pins and just put one over here and one over here in this manner. If you see, there are two pins over here, one over here and one over here. Both are U pins, and I would ideally at this stage leave it aside. I would leave this aside for a couple of hours, at least maybe about 2 hours or 3 hours, just so that it's easy to handle this part. Because if at this stage, if I make this and try to join it, there's a good chance I might just squidge this shape and it would just spoil, and I might lose the round part, the round shape of this, or I may just end up messing up the shape of the bali as well. So it's always better that you leave this piece to dry a bit. So what I've done is I've already made another piece, and you can clearly make out that this is somewhat dried because of the color difference. I made this about 2 hours back, and it's already it's still cool to touch. So it's not bone dry. But there's been a lot of it's just dried off really quickly. So, and I know at this stage, if I hold the earring, it's not going to really damage the shape in any way. So this is much easier to handle right now. So we'll work from this. So that's part one. Now what I would do is make the bali part. The bali is more like the circular part of the earring. Roughly about 0.3 centimeter thickness should be sufficient, because these are going to be a little heavy. But then obviously there are a lot of them who really carry off some heavy earrings quite well. Roughly about 0.25 to 0.3 centimeter thickness. I would just flatten it off with a knife. You can use a rib as well for this purpose. This is just a small piece of slab, so I'm just using my knife. Okay. At this stage, you can obviously use a cutter, any cutter that you wish. So I'm using this kind of a cookie cutter. It's roughly about an inch in diameter. You want to use anything bigger, go ahead and do it. It's totally your choice. I would just do that. I have this. Once that's done, I'll just flatten it again because it's going to have a lot of my fingerprints on it. And now I'll choose a slightly smaller cutter, probably somewhere about this size. You can use even something about this size, but you want to make sure that you don't make the sides way too thin, because that's going to make it really delicate. So it's always better that you have a little bit left on the side. Also helps to design it. So how I would do it is roughly keep it over here. I would just make a light marking to start off with. If I'm okay with the position, then I would just go ahead and just make the cut. Once that's done, you can just I would keep flattening it at like multiple times, because I don't like an unfinished piece. I just want it to be really good. So now at this stage, what you can do is roughly get the measurement on. So I have the hook over here, so I would just make just a left and a right marking like this. Okay, just a rough marking. Firstly, I would just cut it off in this way. I'll see if this is enough space. Now you realize that this, obviously the reason why I have put these two U pins is because it has to go into these two parts of the earring. Sorry, these two parts of the bali. So I think I need a little bit more space. I'll just cut off a little bit from one of the sides. Yep, I think this should be somewhat okay. Maybe just a bit from here as well. You can work on either of these. You can either make this part with the design and keep it ready, or you can do the stud part and keep it ready. One of the parts have to be at least somewhat bone dry, just so that it's easier to handle the whole piece. You can do the design, whichever design that you want to do on this one. So what I would do is I'll just I'll do something similar to what I've done on the stud. So I have something like this. Probably use a little something here. I'm just putting small little holes. There you go, something like that. So now I know that I have to put it somewhere here. Okay. I'll just take a little bit more off. There you go. So this again, because this piece is dried, it's a lot more easier to measure, because obviously that these pins have to sit midway here as well as here. You don't want it just spread out in any way, because this earring comes as a whole. This is ideally what a Chandbali design is. So you want it to be placed well. So make sure that you cut off only little by little and not a big chunk at a time. Because if little by little would you can do, if there is any kind of a difference, you can always adjust that by just cutting off a little bit more. But in one shot, if you try and cut out a lot, then you'll just have to scrap the piece and work again, because neither of the pins would join, so there's no point. So what I would do is I'd just knock off a little bit here again. Like you see, I'm doing it I'm just cutting like this is about roughly 0.1 0.1 centimeters or maybe about 0.2 centimeter thickness at a time. I think that should be enough to give you a rough image. So this way what will happen is, you know, for certain that it's going to sit well. And that's it. See, I mean, when I cut off that last portion, I realized that when I place it this way, I know both the pins are correctly in the center of this particular bali. So that is enough for me. Now I know that this design is going to work out perfectly for me. So it's just till you get the hang of it, and like I say, make the whole circle, make the central whatever circle or whatever you want, and start cutting it off only little by little. Don't take a big chunk of the piece right away. I would have a small U-pin. I have my bent nose plier here. You put it in. You'll see that it's already, you know, you see how much of handling is necessary to put the pin in. So once that's in, you know that at least when you press this in, or when it's not going to ruin any shape. I'll use another pin. And then place it in the center. And there you go. You have a design like that ready. Up to you about what you do to enhance the design at the base. I mean, you want to put a bunch of stick beads, go ahead and do that. You want to put some ghungroo beads, you can do that. When you're putting stick beads, I think, like I always say, you want to maintain at least a nail's distance, because obviously when the piece shrinks, it will come back together. So that's what it is. It's a pretty little design. You can just smoothen it, make sure it's all nice and neat and smoothened out, and you have a piece like this that's ready for you. Each of these beads have a certain amount of, a little bit of gap between each of these stick beads are maintained, and that's it. This is the Chandbali. This is a small, no, not so small actually. Yeah, I think roughly about 1 point. Yeah, this is about 1.5 inches, I would say, roughly. Maybe a little lesser than 1.5 inches actually. This particular. So yeah, I really hope you like this. Takes it's not, I wouldn't say it's difficult. It's just that, you know, when you are either ways, like I said, I'll just run you through the process again. So when you're working on this earring, I always suggest, or rather anything which has multiple levels like this, I always suggest that you start off with working on one part first and then let that dry and then work on the other part. So in this case, what I did is I made the stud, put the 2 pins in, and I kept it ready. But I think a lot of people find it better to make the bali part, put in the pins, put in the 2 Nichrome pins in the bali, embellish it or whatever, and then keep it aside for drying. Give it a couple of hours, let this portion dry, and once this portion is somewhat dry, easier to handle, work on the stud, put the pins in. Makes it a lot easier to do it that way. And just that, because I made the stud, you know, cutting it, when you're cutting off the part of the bali, you may want to always do it only little by little and not a big chunk at a time, because if the gap is too much, then the pins are not going to really meet. And in this case, you know that you know, the pins are just about right. It's not too far away and it's not too near. It's, you know, if the piece was dried, you know, it's going to shake like this really well. I wouldn't suggest you do that because it's just going to come off. So let it dry and then you can you know, try and experiment with that. So this is having enough space and yeah, I think that's it. I think collectively, cutting, I think I must have done a bunch of times. Like, see how many pieces I've really, little pieces. It's because I prefer doing it little by little. I've been working with clay for a couple of years now, but for about at least easily about over 10 years now, and I still wouldn't confidently chop off one big lot of clay. No, I wouldn't do that. I would take it off little by little, and just so that it's fine. Yep. So that's the earring. That's the Chandbali. Hope you liked the video. If yes, then please like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll continue to upload more such useful videos, and thank you to all those who are suggesting things. I think a bunch of you have been suggesting some other things as well. I will get to that. Yep. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thank you.